Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg, entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Constantine Maroulis is back in New York. He is great as Alan Freed, who some of you are saying, who's Alan Freed? Alan Freed was probably the first disc jockey that ever played rock and roll. He was probably the first disc jockey that ever gave the black community a break. And he changed the world in a way, and he changed music. And here to interpret it I have to go see it, but I have friends who saw it who said the whole audience stood up, they went berserk. You did a great job.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job. And Rock and Roll Man, it's all happening now. So tell me what happened, how this happened, and you're looking great.
Thank you.
And rock and roll was like my time. I still remember the dancing and the singing and all the excitement because it was a new language for us.
Absolutely, absolutely, and my parents as well. Born in Brooklyn, myself, and as were my parents, and my mother and her sisters used to attend the Brooklyn Paramount and the Alan Freed rock and roll shows, the dance party rock concerts with Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Laverne Baker, all featured in our show Rock and Roll Man right now in the heart of Broadway. For me, just the chance to create and originate another new role in New York, that always speaks to an actor. I think people probably know me best from Rock of Ages, which was this iconic sort of 80s rock show and, satirical and fun, but with a lot of heart. This is the origin of the genre. This is an ugly time in our country's history during segregation when, black artists couldn't get played on the radio. Black kids and white kids weren't allowed to hang out and listen to records at a soda shop or a record shop or go to concerts together. And it was someone like Alan Freed that stepped forward and elevated. Yeah, he really did.
He did. And did your family know you had that voice with a capital V from the beginning? I mean, a lot of kids can sing, but you had something different.
Well, thank you. I'm the youngest of three, a big Greek family.
And they entertained, too. Well, they did.
They did. My mother had a great singing voice. She sang in the Greek church some. My brother is a very well-known entertainer, Constantine Maroulis. That's like Nathan, but
right.
with... Oh, that's usually it's me that has the phone ringing. Pick it up. See who it is. It's Katsimatidis, I think. He's calling. He said, "Is the Greek in there? I know. I heard
right.
The Greek is in there."
And no one is more loyal to the Greek.
That's right. We love John, and for me, certainly, my brother was a huge influence, and they were always talented. I as the youngest of three, I worshipped my brother and sister. Of course, I worshipped them, and. I wanted to be just like them, listen to their records, be in musicals, and play in bands and such. So I think from early on, you want to find your place. I had this big voice, this big instrument. It took me time to really find the confidence in it. But from a very, very, very early age, I had this big instrument inside of me.
Who found you first and said, this kid has something?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I was blessed. We left Brooklyn when I was very young, and I grew up in New Jersey in sort of affluent Upper Bergen County suburb. My parents both worked really hard. We didn't have much, but they wanted a better
for
A better life for us, yeah. And, Brooklyn in the mid-'70s and the late '70s, early '80s, it wasn't the Brooklyn it is right now. You had this sort of Saturday Night Fever kind of element, right? And although that was a big pop movie, they were kind of, they were tough kids, and it was a tough neighborhood. So I had great teachers early on, that were very supportive of my voice and my acting and whatnot. So I'm grateful to the educational system in North Jersey, and very supportive of the arts, and that was helpful for me.
Right, and you knew that it wasn't easy for a kid to be in the arts then for a lot of reasons, but that was where you had to go.
For sure. I think I played sports. I was a normal kid. Loved all things 80s, G.I. Joe and wrestling and, MTV. But
and then TV found you too.
It did, yes.
I'm sure a lot of people know you from that.
From American Idol, for
Right.
sure. In its
That
heyday, for sure. It was
big time.
It was so big, Joan. It was, I think in a way it was reminiscent of the big radio contests and shows that my parents listened to in their
course.
youth, right? So it just captivates this imagination, and American Idol comes along, and the entire country was watching. It's still out there running and doing great, but when you're 30 million people a night for 3 nights a week from January to June, that is a juggernaut. So it was a wonderful experience. I had trained at the Boston Conservatory as an actor and whatnot, and toured in Rent, this big Broadway show.
Yeah, you definitely had the background.
But I just needed a gig. I needed a gig, and I went on that audition for that show like I would for anything. And I think that kind of informed the character I became on the show, and certainly that was a great platform.
Was it hard getting the audition? Did you have people already, like a producer or an agent?
I was working with some representation at the time, but I think in the early days of American Idol, you were not allowed to really have a representation. You were supposed to be sort of someone that was an unknown. Nowadays, they do very much cast the show from social media, from YouTube, from TikTok, these people that have huge engagement already. They find the balance, but they are casting the show. So I had a band, I had been in Rent. That was a little bit of my story, but I think for me it was I was a little against the grain for what they had. I was a bit of a rocker. I had long hair. And I just think, yes, early on the producers had the camera on me right away at that audition. But no, I went on an open call, like the old school cattle calls.
You
know what a
found
cattle...
it in the Showbiz magazine?
Basically, a friend of mine was like, let's go audition for this TV show. Now, remember, they had 3 seasons, but I was on tour. I was in conservatory. The internet, we didn't use it that way then,
it was just
It was
happening.
a different time, and so I just was hungry and needed an opportunity.
And you took that opportunity, and it started happening.
Sure. And we had a great run on American Idol. Of course, Carrie Underwood, she won my season, and she's gone on to just global superstardom. But for me, I knew that was going to happen for her. I was a little older. I needed to sort of find my own path, and that was really coming back home to theater and certainly doing records and some TV acting as well. But really, that's where I first met the producers of Rock of Ages, and we developed that show.
Yeah, they recognized you from the beginning.
They did. I think they kind of,
Said, this guy is
this might be our guy to take this show to Broadway at some point. And that's what I enjoy most about collaboration. It's wonderful to play 8 shows a week.
It's exhausting, though.
It's exhausting, but it's the process getting to there. It's the developing. It's the rehearsals. It's cutting and changing and adding and casting. That thrills me. The sort of producer elements of it as well. So.
And that first show, you got big reviews.
Got the big reviews, got the nominations and all the accolades.
And what did that do initially?
It was wonderful. I had been on Broadway. I had done The Wedding Singer. I had done some plays in New York and such. But it was certainly, I think, cemented me as someone that was, a player in the contemporary musical theater, which, let's face it, pretty much everything is contemporary now that's playing. It's rare. A show like Camelot at Lincoln Center, and although beautifully directed and beautifully staged, I think that doesn't maybe capture the modern audience like these new sort of rock
They
or
want
pop.
it. They want to dance in the aisle.
They do, and I think there's always going to be a place for the traditional kind of 20th century sound, but audiences want to rock. They want to rock.
They want to rock.
And even with this being a show that's set in predominantly in the 50s, you just hear those songs of that era. It instantly puts you in like a just joyous place.
Well, and we had that in the 50s. We had that kind of music that included all of us.
Yes, ma'am.
And it isn't as prevalent. We have to keep on pushing for it.
You do, and here at WABC, they're keeping it alive with Cousin Brucey, and the music just plays wonderfully on AM, but now, of course, with FM as well. And, for me, I think it was written and composed at a time to appeal to young people, but really to everybody. It was brilliant in its simplicity, and the vocals were incredible, and you didn't always put a face to the song, but it was an Alan Freed that got to elevate the true stars like Little Richard or Chuck Berry, who became, they could walk into any room and you would know who they were.
That's right. And
maybe the Dominoes, maybe the Platters, maybe
but big time.
the Coasters. You might not know the face of that band,
And he burned himself out.
he did. He was gone by 43.
I know. It's so hard to believe that happened. That happened to him.
Yeah, we get to tell that whole story with Rock and Roll Man, the musical. We meet Alan Freed really at the end of his journey, really on his deathbed, in this kind of fever dream about his legacy and his family and the artistry. He kind of takes us back in time to the Brooklyn Paramount, to Cleveland, to WJW, where really he played rock and roll music on popular radio for the first time. I know it's a controversial topic, but he really did coin the phrase rock and roll.
Yeah.
It was a lyric in songs before him in traditional rhythm and blues songs. Like 60 Minute Man and whatnot, but he took that phrase and popularized it, and people, they were able to name what it is. Oh, rock and roll. That it's different than rhythm and blues. It's rock and roll. There's a sexual connotation to it that was subliminal enough to speak to the youth of America, but the older people got it too.
And did you use it from the beginning? It fit you?
It did. I think I relate to this guy. When my parents, when their parents, my grandparents came here, 100 years ago now.
Hard to believe.
The Greeks, they experienced severe prejudice, and I think Alan Freed had to hide the fact that his father was Jewish, growing up in the Midwest in a Christian household. His mother was very religious and very strict Christian. She saw him playing swing music and playing the trombone, which is a very provocative instrument, in the 1930s and 40s, right? And he was fascinated by his fellow classmates. Only a few of them were African American. He loved the way they sang and the spiritual music that they sang. If you can believe it, my director, who loves Randall Myler, we love him. He's done so many great shows from Janis Joplin and onward. He's a bit of a collector like me, so he found a yearbook from the Salem, Ohio Quakers, the high school Alan Freed attended, and in the theater group, they're doing blackface.
You're kidding.
Nope. right there in the yearbook. So, it's just a completely different time in our country. And he was someone that from the beginning wouldn't have participated in that. He knew that it was wrong. And he wanted to just, he didn't have the talent that his friends did, but he took to the microphone and knew how to just sell this music and communicate. And I think that was his gift.
And then when you found yourself in this music, you made it work. Was it Broadway that you think gave you the big push?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think those movie musicals of my youth, watching The Wizard of Oz and West Side Story with my
gosh,
family,
we
the
all
best.
love that.
I mean, just masterpieces. And my mother and father would point out the Greeks in West Side Story in the movie. Of course, George Takiris wins the Oscar as Bernardo. And that was just so real to me. So that something about musical theater, about the script and the score together was magical to me. So that really spoke to me. It allowed me to find my voice. And then MTV really informed, me as an artist early on, with rock and roll and those just incredible videos and artistry on display. And the imagery, was huge.
Did, as time went on, you had to change what you were doing to keep up with what was happening in the music world?
Of course. I think as an actor, you get pigeonholed, and I think everyone knows me as the rocker from Broadway, but I'm a Tony-nominated Best Actor. I can do whatever you need me to do. I have the long hair and that look and such, but I think as you can see in our show, I get to transform into someone completely different, a conservative, guy from the 50s, so for me, I'm always into a challenge. But yeah, I think as you get older, I'm now in my mid to late 40s. If you can believe it, it's been 18 whole years, like since my American Idol days.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, you evolve, you change.
Really
and
life-changing.
It is. And I think I have new music out right now. You can find anywhere music streams.
There you are.
Yeah, ConstantineMaroulis.com if you want a simple place to find all the social media and the music. But I have a new song, Daydream, which has been informed by this experience. Rock and Roll Man takes place in this dream. So Daydream is sort of this fantasy of like that person that you just connect with on every level, physically, emotionally, but they only really exist in this dream sort of place. And so you almost want to go back to sleep just so you could see them.
So you can hold on to it.
Yeah.
I know, I understand that.
You do.
And Alan Freed, he's got family left.
He does.
And they found you, or you found them? How did you hook up with them?
Yeah, our amazing creative team, the Guttermans, and of course Rose Kaola, Kaola Productions. They've been wonderful producers, the best you can ever ask for, and they've been working with the family and the estate for some time on this show. I've been involved the last couple of years, but it had a life before me.
Yeah.
But I think it was something about this current cast, Joey Pants, of course, Joey Pantoliano, from just, a film icon, of course, The Sopranos, but The Matrix and La Bamba and everything. From Here to Eternity was one of his first gigs, the television series in what, the early 70s, with the adaptation. He did the Sinatra role, and he's been incredible. He gets to play both Leo Mintz, who was the owner of the Record Rendezvous in Cleveland, where rock and roll essentially was born.
I know, people don't realize that.
Yeah, two Jewish guys in the Midwest. Who would have thought?
Yeah,
that's why the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in.
I know, and that's why people would say, why would they put a Hall of Fame there? Because that's
history,
where it is.
History, that's where it began. And then later, Morris Levy, who was essentially a gangster record label owner. He owned Birdland in the 50s. So Joey gets to play both parts, both in Act 1 and then in Act 2, sort of the Jekyll and Hyde characters. But yeah, Alan was a flawed man. I've talked to his son about that. You know,
His son knew that Dad drank and
he did. He was gone too early. Imagine, you know, I'm older than Alan was when he died, and I have a 12-year-old, and I can't imagine the impact it would have on her if something were to happen to me. But I've been clean and sober many years now, and I've never been happier. But I understand how people deal with alcoholism, and again, it wasn't a healthy time in our country. Like, if you were a smoker, a drinker, and you had problems and you ignored them, you know, you're not going to live a long, beautiful life.
But you don't think of that because
I don't. You know, I try to take care of myself, and my father was gone too soon for me. You know, he suffered with Parkinson's disease for many years, and my mother's hanging in there. She's fighting cancer, but you know, I think that's their objective is for their children to learn from them, to lead a better life in all facets.
And you do that, and your daughter is doing that. Does
So
she
far,
sing?
so good. She does sing, but you know, it's funny. At 12 years old, I was like, make way, I'm going to the stage. She doesn't have the passion for that. She's talented.
Not yet.
Well, I don't know. You know, she dances, she acts and stuff. I think a lot of 12-year-old girls in this country do. She's talented enough. The agent loves to call her for certain things, but she doesn't have that driving passion for it yet. She's an excellent student. 3 semesters on the high honor roll. She plays travel sports, a very competitive soccer team, and tennis. So she's a busy kid. So
she is, and she's got a daddy who does all this. And you know,
she was born on
kids-
Broadway.
Right, but a lot of times it's easier for a kid not to jump in the fray because a parent is doing that.
My hope for her is to not get involved in this
You
maniacal
never
journey,
know.
but you never know. You know, I'm hoping Harvard, Princeton, Columbia, you know, like everybody else. But so far, so good. She's thriving in the suburbs. Her mom and I co-parent.
And live near each other.
We do live
right?
near each other. She's a great mom. We've been through a lot. We've been through a very tumultuous 10 or 12 years, but we are finally in a really great groove these last few years of co-parenting in a healthy way. And, you know, I'm thankful for her. I met her mom on Broadway.
You did? She was acting?
She was acting and dancing in musicals. And, you know, sure enough, we have a 12-year-old now. I don't know how that happened, Joan. She showed up one day.
That's right. It's from New Jersey.
That's it. The stork dropped her off.
Visited.
Yeah, those you know, those chorus girls. They're
right.
They're talented. And we've had some good times along the ways, but you know, Rock and Roll Man is the next part of my journey, and we're really very blessed.
And of course, you're bringing the music back to where it belongs a lot.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you know, of course, Alan Freed worked in the end at WABC. After so much controversy, he landed at WABC. He didn't last long here. By that point, he was such a provocative guy. He did. He was at WABC. After essentially the Boston riot that he caused, you know, having, you know, black kids and white kids, a desegregated audience for the first time in a town like Boston was tough.
Wow.
Hoover came after him. The Boston PD came after him. You know, he had a myriad of arrests and whatnot. He ended up via Morris Levy's connections in New York, back on the radio at WABC. Probably this must have been in the very late 50s, if not early 60s at this point. Mm-hmm. But essentially that was his last stop in New York. He bounced around a little bit, Florida, back to California.
Did you guys know him? Your family knew of him as a DJ?
My mother did, yeah. She went to the Brooklyn Paramount and saw the Rock and Roll Dance Party live. She saw the shows. It's crazy. But
Did she appreciate them? She knew.
Of course, yeah. You know, she grew up in a diverse neighborhood. You know, with African Americans and everybody. So she always understood the importance of breaking through that ugly time of segregation and
and music did it.
Absolutely. That's the one sort of universal, just tool that can bring us all together, for sure.
And you see it all the time, even today with kids. It's the music
For sure.
that holds them.
Yes, ma'am.
Does your daughter love it? Love music?
She does. It's so easy now for the kids to just hit the button on their phone and stream a great playlist, and a diverse playlist as well. I have a new song, so it gets mixed in there.
Is she excited about that?
She is. We did some fun videos on my social media, where she's in the driver's seat of my car. Of course, it's parked safely with her little cousin. And they're playing my song in the car, bopping around to it. And I'm knocking on the, hey, kid, hey, roll down the window. And she's like, who are you? I said, that's my song you're playing. She's like, you're not Constantine Maroulis. That's Constantine Maroulis Daydream. I'm like, that's me. So we had some fun stuff like that. And she loves to support. And she came to the show on Father's Day, so that was wonderful. And she's getting big. She's tall. She's going to be in 7th grade. She's got camp coming up with the professional soccer team in New Jersey, the Red Bulls. Her first.
So she's an athlete.
She is an athlete. Yeah, it's serious stuff in North Jersey.
It's serious stuff anywhere there's a school.
Man, so we're paying for the training, the coaching, the camps, the travel. There's a lot, but we love it. It's.
Did you do that when you were a kid? Or
I did.
It was music mostly.
It was. I never played travel sports. I always played rec, played in church, played some basketball in high school. I was never as good as the other kids. Now I really enjoy always in my adult life, I always enjoyed, pickup games, and it's fun. But no, she's a better athlete than me for sure. She's better at everything.
I wouldn't go that far. But
I don't know. She's in all AP classes. I was not. Let's just say I was not.
But you didn't care.
I did not.
You cared about other things.
I just didn't. I knew where I was going from very early on.
It's true, but girls are different.
They are.
Girls from the time they're little want to please.
That's it.
And, you don't necessarily please by singing rock and roll.
No, ma'am.
Unless she's your kid.
Yeah, she. I've come from a long line of educators. My sister's a principal in a prestigious school. Columbia graduate. My brother is very well educated. I had uncles that were teachers and administrators. So from very early on, we had books in her hand. We had her drawing and writing and spelling, and she was a very good reader from very early on. She took to math early on. Let's see where that goes. Right now, she's on a great track. I just think there are so many incredible opportunities going forward for young, strong, bright women.
Right.
And I think that we need more of that. We've done so much to fight for equality in pay and in just certainly in our field as well, and for all human rights. And I think that she can be someone. And I might know a couple of people down in D.C. So
Right.
I think I'd love to see her take her brilliant mind and get into entrepreneurial, endeavors. Maybe, I think it's always nice to look at law school, but I think she can really impact, tech and new business, but maybe even the world of, politics. We'll see.
She can do it all, and she's got a good mentor.
Well, I'll be behind her, pushing her through.
All right. I love that you came to visit
Thank
me
you so
today.
much, Joan. You are
Constantine Maroulis, rock and roll man. You're going to be jumping up and down in the aisles.
That's right.
And don't forget, music is the great equalizer.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's going to change your life, and we need more of it.
Thank you.
All the best to you.
And to you. You are such an icon. It's such a pleasure to sit with you just for a little bit. I've been a fan my whole life. So I love that show you used to do, the matinees.
Oh, do you remember
Oh,
Sardi's?
I know it. I know
you
it.
would come over.
I got a caricature there.
I love that.
Yeah.
Arlene Francis.
Yes.
She and I would do that show, and she was so excited.
Yeah.
I remember she had Frank Sinatra
Wow.
come one day, who told us what horses to bet on in the Derby. And do you know that we won?
Oh my goodness! Well, you can't beat a Hoboken kid. Joey Pants is in our show. He knew the Sinatras, and they rolled in the same neighborhood, and so it was pretty great. But absolutely, Broadway is absolutely back. Sardi's, that whole area is just popping. Come see a Broadway show.
We need it.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
This is the best time to see a Broadway
I love
show because
I love it.
Quieter
It is.
than usual.
Yes, ma'am.
And go to Sardi's, have a turkey sandwich or whatever.
Good. They got the good. I don't drink, but they got the good martinis, the chicken parmesan. And guess what? Our theater has the best air conditioning in New York.
Well, that definitely is.
I got to tell you,
plus.
that's a big plus.
Especially when you're rock and rolling, honey. You're going to have that coolness. All right, everyone. I love sharing Constantine with you. He'll come and visit us again.
Yes, ma'am.
Enjoy everything. I'm Joan Hamburg. More ahead.